Hey guys, and welcome to the Wedding Pros podcast. Jason, it's been a while since we were
I don't even remember the last
these
time
live airwaves.
we did this, but glad to be back.
I know, I think it was maybe September. It's been a while. It's been a year, I think, for everyone out there. Hope everyone's doing well at home, watching this, listening to this. We wanted to give you guys kind of an update of the future of Wedding Pros, what's going on our end with our business as we sit here in an empty room to record this podcast. Maybe you can hear a little bit more.
One camera angle.
One camera angle. Jason, maybe you could, kind of tell people what's going on.
So, this is the last episode of Wedding Pros, as you probably saw from the title of the video / podcast episode.
Yep.
We are
Sad
day, but a good day because we're doing something new.
We are doing something new, and I say, this is the end, but really it's just the beginning of something that we're actually really excited about.
Yes.
So, we have been in talks with Wedding Film School, and for a while, Wedding Film School has been without a podcast for years. I don't even know how long they've been without a podcast. Do you know?
The last one I don't think they did that many episodes. Maybe
did they ever even do it?
Years?
I haven't even seen one before.
They did.
Yeah,
they did. Craig had one, and then he stopped making one. But it's been a long time, and we think that format is really good for that community.
Yep.
So we had kind of talked to them about maybe like collaborating on something, possibly doing just like originally we're just thinking like. We'll do one episode a month, and then we'll keep doing Wedding Pros. We weren't really sure what we wanted to do with it because, to be quite honest, Wedding Pros is a lot of work, and it doesn't make any money. And we were like, as a business, we were having to weigh, COVID kind of kicked us right in the teeth, right when we were building our audience and building our subscriber bases. And it kind of made us reevaluate, and I think it forced us to make some good choices. But one of the things I feel like we kind of ran into as we did the podcast, which I'm so grateful for, I love doing this show. We had a lot of fun, and we're going to keep having fun at Wedding Film School. But one of the things that came really apparent to me is when we first started doing this, if you go back and listen to older episodes, I think our goal was to connect people from various walks of the wedding community, life, around creating for weddings, and so you look at our audience base or our guests, and we were trying to have photographers and planners, and it doesn't mean we still won't have those people, by the way, in the future, because I do think there's a lot of value there for everyone. But I think as we made the podcast, it became really apparent to me that we're filmmakers first,
Yeah.
And
I would say we're ADD first and foremost.
Yes.
And so I feel like with Wedding Pros, we wanted to do it all. And that's kind of always been our approach with the business that you and I run. It's just hey, we'd be better at that than someone else would.
Well, I'd rather start with a big thing and narrow it down.
And see what works.
Yeah, and I think it became pretty apparent to us that talking about wedding filmmaking was the thing we wanted to spend more of our time doing. And talking, especially when we would talk about let's talk about new cameras, and then we'd be what if people don't care about that, and we don't want to alienate people, and we still don't want to alienate you, by the way. We would love you to continue this journey with us, but you got to know we want to talk about the things that we're, I think, experts at and we know about. And so this desire to be more connected in the wedding film community, kind of everything from, because we got to remember, when we started the podcast, we started it before we ever went to Vision Quest, before we ever connected with any wedding filmmakers, before we really, I personally wasn't really even aware that there was a community around wedding filmmaking, which makes me feel kind of dumb, but it's just where we were. We were in our own little world, and as it kind of expanded, we were well, this is a community we want to contribute to in a more direct way. And I think it just makes sense to kind of focus our efforts on wedding filmmakers. And
because if maybe this is your first time listening to Wedding Pros, probably not.
But really weird first episode.
I know. But
heard this podcast ending. You want to check it out?
what we found is, a lot of people that actually reach out to us and are like, hey, I really enjoyed this week of Wedding Pros, are people that have been in the industry for a long time and are like super seasoned veterans, but they're also they're obviously wedding filmmakers, photographers, but then there's also some wedding PR people, there's wedding planners, there's just people across the spectrum, people that reach out to us on our Facebook group that want to join, that are florists or whatever. So there's a broad audience, and so what we decided on, like Jay said, was just, hey, this is how we can actually really contribute to the most people. We really want to whittle our show down to the thing that we're really good at, and something that doesn't just isolate people when we want to talk about camera gear or
if
whatever.
We want to ramble on about a camera for 30 minutes, we want to know that it's interesting to people. And honestly, like, there's a lot more that we actually know what we're talking about there. And I think some of the times if we move into certain, like, if we want, I can kind of talk about wedding planning, I guess, but it's not something we really are contributing a massive amount when that kind of goes into it. And so it's really like, how can you do the most good, right? Yep. How can you actually like contribute the most? So anyway, Wedding Film School, if you don't know about it, we probably should have explained it. We don't want to assume everyone knows, but if you don't know about it, Wedding Film School is a really, really cool YouTube channel. It's a little more than that. There's a great Facebook community you should check out. And it is a place for wedding filmmakers to get better, of course. It's especially welcoming, I think, to people who are new to the profession, who want to become better. But I think it's more than that. I do believe it's really good for people who are just actually seasoned veterans and want to have friends and make connections. It's a community. It's something that we've been a part of in terms of like being on the Facebook group before we ever got involved in this way. And so it's kind of like, I think, one of the premier brands in the wedding filmmaking world. If you're familiar with it, Bobby is still involved. Jason's still going to be involved. It's not like the old days where people are just falling off, but we're just kind of joining and getting connected. And I will say, like, there's a renewed vision, I think, behind it.
I mean, if you've been a part of any of like these Facebook groups or YouTube channels or whatever, I think the hardest thing to do in these groups is cultivate community that's consistent, that's always, contributing, that the people that are leaders are able to give their time to and be involved in and really committed to, right? And from what I saw as kind of an observer in the early days of Wedding Film School it was one of the first of its kind, right? It was one of the first, like, hey, we are community, let's learn together. They really had something going for them, so they grew really quick, and they were just like putting out content all the time. A great resource, like you said, for new videographers.
Content. Like, they were one of the first people to do like weddings BTS or like talk about like. I probably ended up watching in the old days, like installing Magic Lantern on your 5D Mark II. Of
course,
just stuff like that.
But as you know, it's hard to keep up with, and I think the original creators of Wedding Film School moved on to bigger and better things in their mind, and Wedding Film School kind of got forgotten about for a little bit, and was kind of like a dying community. So other kind of alternatives sprouted up, which is great. And like Jason said, we are really excited and kind of with a renewed vision for Wedding Film School. Bobby has been doing an awesome job. Jason, they've been creating some consistency, I think, with Wedding Film School, and that's kind of the thing that really excited you and I, was like, hey, this thing is alive now, and we're seeing a lot more people go on to Wedding Film School and connect with people, and so there's some life there. And we were like, hey, how can we come on board with a regular podcast and just create a little bit more consistency to just the weekly kind of YouTube channel that Bobby is putting out, and bring our expertise as well. And Bobby and us, we have different types of businesses too, which I'm really excited to, bring what we can, because we run a totally different business than what Bobby does, and kind of show people, hey, there are different levels to this. Like, there are different approaches to this thing. You don't have to just be one type of wedding videographer. There's a bunch of different ways that you can make money in this industry. And then also balancing that with, how do I fulfill my creative urges and my creative needs at the same time? So really excited.
Yeah. So we want you to go on the journey with us. We want you to follow along. We want you to stay. Here's the plan. In the short term, obviously in the long term, things can change, but we are going to continue to upload. If you're listening to this podcast on one of your various podcast providers, we're going to continue to upload and we're just going to change some of the branding, change the intro. So if you're just listening, the next time we do an upload, which will probably be a couple weeks while we get the show ready, the new show, Wedding Film School Show is what it's going to be called, but we're going to start uploading there, and you can continue you don't need to resubscribe. You can just stay where you are if you're a subscriber. We're probably going to only be uploading to the YouTube channel for maybe 10 episodes and trying to migrate the whole audience over to the Wedding Film School YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. And please, we want you to get connected. We want you to get plugged in. Let us know if you came from the old Wedding Pros, and you'll be our OG Wedding Pros people. When we get over to the Wedding Film School channel. But there just a couple of things. I mean, in general, it's probably going to be more exciting to the Wedding Film School fans. Our Wedding Pros fans are pretty diverse. We have photographers and stuff. And by the way, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys a lot. We still want to be having photographer guests on a very regular basis on our show, because we think they contribute a lot to even filmmaking. Photographers are image makers. Yeah. At the end of the day, and we don't view that as a totally separate discipline. So if you enjoy like some of our photographer guests, we're going to continue to have those guests.
Let's hop into that a little bit, because I think it's fair to people to let them know kind of what the new show is going to be about. I think our structure is going to be, I wouldn't say a lot different, but it's going to be definitely a different show.
I would say it's pretty different.
Yeah, I would say too. Definitely a different set. That's why we're sitting in this empty room here.
Yeah, we're building a whole new set. First of all,
that's been my life the last 2 weeks, is building a couple studios and sets, which is really exciting. Really excited to show that off and hear your critiques and comments, negative ones and positive ones. But yeah, really excited to unveil that. But let's talk about the actual show, Jay. What are some of the main things that you really see the Wedding Film School show evolving into?
So let's start with what's going to be the same. Me and you are going to be on the show. So
that's a plus.
The same.
Yeah.
So if you like us, we'll still be there. I think, we're obviously, we don't want to change who we are as people. We're still going to try to bring some of the same of our personalities to the table. But in terms of like the actual format of the show, it's going to be much more structured. To be quite honest, we have sponsors for this show, so we need to include them. So if you hate advertisements, sorry. We got to pay the bills.
No one's going to listen to this show now.
It's going to be sick.
Yeah.
No, but the biggest thing I think that really comes down to is like, we're definitely going to have more of a focus on equipment, news, things that matter to wedding filmmakers. We have a different interview format we're going to be unveiling. And one of I think the biggest changes that I think is very positive is Bobby is going to be involved on a pretty regular basis. So we'll have Bobby Burns popping in for a few more discussions. We got some guests that we're lining up too that I think obviously the guests are going to probably be more directed towards wedding filmmakers. But I think image makers in general, definitely some photographers as well, but mostly wedding filmmakers, and there's some of the things I just want to keep as a surprise or hard to really, you got to listen to it. I think we have all the ideas in our head, and we've kind of been talking through the script and all this stuff, but I think you're going to like it. I think it's a much more focused experience. And the other thing to just put out there, which has almost nothing to do with the show itself, more to do with the channel and what Jared and I are going to be doing, is a lot more content uploads in terms of tutorials, gear reviews, a lot more focus on contributing to the Wedding Film School channel in other ways besides the show. So I think that's another big thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. I think one goal for you and I is to really keep this show very relevant to, a week in, a week out basis.
Yeah.
Which is something that honestly,
Timely content.
when you have a full-time job as a content creator, as a professional wedding videographer, photographer, whatever, putting out stuff like this is difficult to be timely. So sometimes we would get on the phone with Henry at 10 o'clock at night or whatever and record the podcast and then put it out the next Tuesday, I think, or the 2 Tuesdays from now or whatever, and just to keep a regular cadence to releasing of the podcast. But now what we're going to try to do, especially when it comes to gear releases, is we want to be on top of things and really be letting people know, like, hey, this is what Canon is doing this week, what they just released, and kind of be more on top of gear-related news. Also, just what is going on in the world of wedding filmmaking with courses, classes, workshops, etc. Content that's being released by Bobby, the wedding film school team. And so that's
we're just
a goal
going to have
for
a
me.
lot more resources we can offer people.
Yeah.
Like even in terms of, I'm joking about the ads, but even in terms of our partners
Yep.
and what we can offer people, we just have a lot more resources we can offer people. And
Yeah.
I think we can, I have 100% confidence it's going to be a better experience for people. Not that this isn't we do the very best we can with this little show, but we want to do even better. We want to bring it up another notch of production, another notch of guests, and of course, offering value to people. I was going to kind of end with this, which is we really want to hear from people what they want. How can we offer value to you? How can we connect you with people? Who do you want to have on the show? What topics are important to you? And there's really nothing too granular when it comes to wedding filmmaking, because everything is interesting to me. Literally I was obsessing on what is the gain structure of my analog to digital converters in my F2. I'm interested in all kinds of nerdy stuff.
And I turned it on and said, oh, this is how you push record, and it sounds great.
Yeah. But
and I'm going to focus on my images. And
there's when you're in that field and you're in that industry, there's a lot of ways to deal with it. And
you were going to say skin a cat, weren't you?
I always say that, and then I don't want to offend people.
I don't like cats as much as dogs, so I'm never offended.
Hey,
if you want to use that term, feel free.
When I come home and I go,
person.
come up to me and my cat just jumps in my arms.
Yeah.
I mean, your dog couldn't make it to your arms.
He jumps into my arms. I'll show.
You're
I'll
like
show
1,000
you a
feet tall. He can make it all
He does. He's like a football hike. He jumps right there. Shotgun position. Yeah.
Anyway, what the heck were we talking about? Oh yeah, there's just a lot more. There's a lot more content that we can deal with that really answers filmmaking questions, and helping people make better films, make more money making their films, marketing their films, things that really matter to filmmakers. I think we're going to be allowed to really fine tune that.
Yeah.
And so if that's interesting to people, let us know, whether it be popping up on the wedding, definitely join the Wedding Film School Facebook group, follow us on on YouTube, and, feel free to let people know, hey, this is interesting to me. The other thing I was going to let everybody know is this is going to be a weekly show, the Wedding Film School show. It's going to be weekly. We might take a couple weeks off in the year, but we really plan on doing this weekly. Additionally, we eventually, or maybe right away, will be doing a live show as well every week. And so we want to get you on that. So as soon as that starts to become a regular thing, we'll let you know. It's going to be a live show. It's going to be much more focused on film reviews of submissions, helping people with their websites, just kind of going through really community interaction stuff. And also we'll probably have some special guests on it to help us with.
Are you going to start a clubhouse for Wedding Film School?
Wedding Film School Clubhouse.
No, the app Clubhouse.
Is that a clubhouse?
There's an app called Clubhouse now.
What do you do there?
It's essentially a conversation, and so it's if you're not participating in the conversation, you get called out for it, and they make you talk or whatever. I've only been on one, and it's a new thing. You haven't been on Clubhouse yet? You have to be invited.
Cool enough.
Apparently.
I'm not cool enough.
We'll have to talk about getting on a Clubhouse in the future, because I think that's probably a good place to do film review kind of stuff. So
yeah, I mean,
that's
all that
the new
stuff
rage.
is up in the air because
Yeah.
it's like, who knows what it's going to be. And that was kind of where I was going to like end up is like, we don't know everything that's going to happen. We just know, hey, we're going to make a weekly show. It's going to be on Wedding Film School podcast, or it's going to be on Wedding Film School. So, cut. I'll cut that.
Yeah.
I don't know everything that's going to happen, and that's fine, right? But we just know, head over, follow Wedding Film School on YouTube. Thank you so much for being on this journey with us, for however long you've been on it with
Seriously.
Wedding Pros.
Yeah.
We got to meet a lot of really cool people because of it, and it opened up the door for us to do Wedding Film School. So I'm really grateful.
I'm really, like Jason said, really grateful for everyone who's given Wedding Pros a shot and listened to the podcast and encouraged us and just said, hey, this content that you put out was like really good. I really appreciated that you guys did that because no one's talking about this very specific thing. And so super grateful for your encouragement, but also really excited for the future. I think, I know when I listen to podcasts in general, even if you take away just like a little nugget from each show, you're slowly growing and adding to your repertoire of just tools to run your business, to be a creative. And so I think that's the idea is we want to start the conversation so that you can think in your brain like, hey, I can use this little piece. I need to go back and apply this to my business. And, obviously when you first start out, which I think is, like Jason said, I'm probably a vast majority of people on Wedding Film School. When you first start out, you really don't know what you're doing, and you might take a lot of the information on this future podcast to heart and say, hey, I'm going to apply these things. And also, when you're a pro that's been in the industry for 11 years, maybe you're taking less, but it's still a good way to, sharpen your skills little by little by just having a good listen. So we're excited to continue talking about wedding films and just kind of contribute that way. So like Jay said, make sure you're subscribing to Wedding Film School on YouTube. Make sure you keep it locked here on Wedding Pros, the podcast. If you listen on Spotify, if you listen to Apple or on Apple, iTunes, whatever, make sure that you keep it locked here. We're going to be releasing content, like Jay said, on a weekly basis. We haven't decided on a day yet, have we?
Tacitly in our minds.
In our minds.
I would say the first week of February, we're probably going to be launching.
Cool.
But, that could change.
Yep. So we'll let you know.
We want it to be right.
We'll let you know what day, because we'd like it to be a consistent day every single week so you can keep it locked and stay tuned.
Don't be all like shocked and surprised when the graphic changes and when it stops saying Wedding Pros and starts saying Wedding Film School. That's what we really want you to know.
Yeah. Because everyone will be so confused if they see something different. They'll be like, where am I? What state am I in?
I will say, do you remember when YouTube downloaded that to everyone's phones?
Oh, yeah.
They were really mad. So, if something subscribes and you're like, I didn't subscribe to this. I know when I get my email and I get an email I didn't subscribe to, it makes me very mad.
Interesting. Yeah, email, I guess. But when I feel like certain podcasts have done, a swap, I've been like, what is this? Oh, this is different.
As long as you knew it was the same thing.
Sure.
So we are changing. Don't be surprised.
We let you know. Don't be mad.
And continue to stay on the journey with us. We can't wait to show you what we have prepared with the Wedding Film School show. Have a great day, guys.